A rare opportunity has brought me here to Texas today to learn a little bit more about a pistol that, until very recently, I had zero experience with. It was only just last week that I shot a SIG P210 for the very first time, and I absolutely loved it. I've come here to Bird Dog Firearms to meet with the company's owner, Danny Clark. Danny also owns Collector's Firearms here in Houston, which is one of the greatest gun shops in the entire country. As it turns out, Danny is also a world-class collector of the SIG P210, and he has agreed to give me a personal guided tour of his collection. So stick around and you're going to see some extremely rare examples of one of the greatest pistols ever made.
So why did I start collecting 210s? When I first started out in the gun business, I said to somebody I thought who was real knowledgeable, what's the best gun out there? And their response was SIG 210. I said, man, I gotta look at these. And so I got one gun, and then I kind of went down a rabbit hole and started looking for other variations. My uncle told me when I first got into the business, he was like, yeah, there's some guys who collect one model and they get off on, you know, minute variations where in production this screw was moved 1/4 of an inch, and at the time I thought, what a stupid way to collect. But that's what I ended up doing, is collecting all these minute variations on the exact same gun. And you know, if my wife takes a look at the collection, she'll say, man, you got 75 guns that are all the exact same. But I'm looking at it and say, man, look at this, look at this, look at this. And so that's how I kind of got into it. One of my favorite guns, I actually acquired this gun right here, which is a cased 210, and it's you know, just a 210-2. I mean, it's you know, kind of a standard gun, but it has all three calibers. So you have the 22, the 30 cal, 9mm, and it's all in a case, a factory case. And so I acquired that first, and then I came across this one, which is a miniature 210 by Leon Crote, who is considered one of the top 2 miniature makers. So it's almost a matching set. You have his version of the 22 caliber and then the 9mm, and these are live bullets to go along with it. This one is a special gun. This is the fanciest 210 that I've ever seen. These were referred to when they were engraved, gold inlaid, as the Luxus model. So this is what you normally see, and sometimes they're in cases, but sometimes they're not. Absolutely gorgeous carving on the grips, and you can see how this one was special versus, you know, not that this is not a special gun, but this one is just so much more above and beyond. All the gold inlay here, and then you have the 22 caliber conversion unit that's also engraved, and it's in a French form-fitting factory case. So you had your factory cutaway, so you can see exactly how everything is working in the gun. So these are factory cutaways. They, for whatever reason, painted it red, and it's on both sides. So I'd seen a couple of these, bought this one, and then I acquired a 210-5 cutaway, which I have no clue why they would even do that, but it's the only one I've ever seen. And another special gun on this table is, you know, for the American market, SIG was marketing a European mag release, so something else that I kind of concentrated on is I love the conversions, where some gunsmith went and converted it to the American style mag release. Towards the later productions that SIG did, which is in the late 90s, early 2000s, before the Swiss series was discontinued, they started making guns that had the American release. They made one that was just, it was produced only in the American release, and that's the 210-8. This one with the two-tone and these grips is called the combat model. Most of these were ordered for one of the Middle Eastern countries, and so I think they only produced roughly 250 of these, and I think going by memory is only like 50 of these made it into the country. So pretty rare gun right here. Probably one of my best guns is this one. This is an SP47/8, which is the designation before it was the 210. And the first 28 guns were all prototypes. And so they were trying different things with the grips and the slides and you know, just figuring out what the production gun was going to look like. This is 6030, which I believe is the first production gun ever made. I bought it right out of the family from the original owner, and his father was a target shooter, and you know, heard about this gun and ordered it, and so there it is. But that, I believe, is the first production SP47/8, which of course turned into the 210. The long barrels that extended, those are 210-5s. Your standard was the 150 millimeter barrel, which is right here. This is a 180 millimeter barrel, which is a rare thing in its own to have one of these. This right here is a factory 22 caliber with a 180 millimeter barrel. So I'm not even sure whether this would fall in as a 210-7, which is the designation for 22s, whether it's a long barrel 210-7 or if it's a 210-5, which is the designation for all the long barrels in 22 caliber. It's the only one I've ever seen. The 210-7, that's the 22 caliber model, which is a rare gun. I mean, you see them, I don't know, and all the guns I see, I may see one or two a year. I don't know how many they made, but it's not a whole lot. In any case, you can tell the difference on a 210-7 by looking at it, because there's a cutout on the slide right here. The reason for that is the first ones that they did not have the cutout, and the slide was too heavy, and so the guns weren't cycling. So this is your standard 210-7. This is the early model 210-7, and you can see it does not have the cutout in the slide. And this is the only one of these that I've ever seen. This gun right here is one of the Dutch contracts. They did 3 separate contracts, and there's some differences in each of those contracts. What makes this gun so special is it has a matching 22 conversion unit, and I think I've only seen 2 of these. I don't know why they did those. Some of these guns are getting into the later productions where they were playing around with stuff. This is a 210 long slide, so it's like a -5 with the long barrel, only they continued the entire slide. They also did 210-6s, which is right here, that had the American models, is what they were called. And they were all heavy frames, and they had the American mag release. This is an oddball. I have an extra barrel that goes with it, but it's a heavy frame 210-5 target, but it doesn't have, and it has a matching short barrel in there, and then I also have the long barrel that goes along with it. So somebody either ordered it or they were playing around with it. SIG also sold conversion units that went along with the 210. So you could buy your 210, and if you later on you decided, hey, I want a conversion unit, you could buy it as well. And they did the same thing on the cutouts on the slides, as the early ones did not have the cutout. The laters did. So this is one of the very first ones, and I guess I never unpacked it. Okay, so there are 9 basic variations without getting into all these sub-variations that I've read about and discovered and have. But the first guns, the designation was the SP-47-8. So this is one of the very first ones. They were all in the 6,000 range, and most of them were on a Swedish contract. So some of the features, you have a chamber indicator, which went away with the SIG 210, and your basic European mag release and wood grips and everything. The next is they went to the SIG 210 designation. The very first ones all had high polished blued frames, and you can also see them with the knurled slide release. When the 210-2 is basically the same gun, but they went to a simpler slotted slide release and not anywhere near as high polish. The 210-3s was a police contract, and the only difference is they all have a P on the serial number with a 4-digit number. That's the easiest way to tell. And the chamber indicator that came back from the SP-47s, where it disappeared on the 1s and 2s. The 210-4 is more on the serial number size. It's almost like a 210-3, only it has a D prefix and a 4-digit number. Also has the chamber indicator. The 5 is the target model. So you had the extended barrel, 150 millimeter barrel was standard. They did have some that were 180 millimeters. Later on, they started doing some long slides, heavy frames, targets, which were more just different designations. There's some that have American mag releases, but there's a lot of variations in the 210-5. 210-6 is another target model. One thing that the 210-6 has is the trigger groups, or the hammer groups in the 210s will just pop out. This one, it's actually screwed in to where it's, so that's the main variation on the 210-6. And on the early models, you had the screw underneath the grips, then they went to where you didn't have to take off the grips to remove the hammer assembly. The 210-7 is the 22 model. So these are very rare. And then finally, you have the 210-8, which is made with the American mag release. This one with the two-tone and these grips is called the combat model. And most of these went to a Middle Eastern nation for the palace guards, is what I've read. So roughly 50 or so made it into the United States.